Welcome back. Welcome for the first time. Whatever. This week I want to talk about leader line. As a new angler, do you need leader line? Short answer, no you don't. So let's say you have monofilament or fluorocarbon tied onto your reel. You don't need a leader line. Why would you need a leader line? If you have a different type of line on as your main line. So if you have braid on your reel, you're gonna need a leader. Not always. Sometimes you'll just go straight braid. If I'm frogging and I'm just throwing it over pads or in heavy grass, the fish aren't gonna detect that line. All they're gonna see is all the pads above it, all the shade. They're gonna see some light coming down and they're gonna see that movement of the frog coming through the pads. Bow, 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 bow. If you're throwing heavy jigs into grass mats or pads, same thing, I go straight braid. If you're gonna use braid as your main line and you're gonna use other lures, topwater lures, you're gonna want a leader line. Now you might be saying, why the heck would you want a leader line? Well, not obviously. Braid's more visible, so you're gonna want fluorocarbon or monofilament because it's less visible. So the fish won't be able to see it. It's gonna make that lure look more realistic. The other reason that you'd wanna use a leader line is braid's really expensive. Not really expensive, but it's expensive. Fluorocarbon and monofilament are a lot cheaper. So if you think about, if you're just using braid, now every time you have to change a lure or you snap off, you gotta cut or tie on a new lure onto that line. So throughout the season, you're gonna lose braid. It's gonna keep getting smaller. So you're losing more money losing braid that way or chopping down and retying lures. If you tie on braid to a leader line, now you're only losing that leader, like a little bit of that leader. It's a lot cheaper. You can always tie on a new leader, more cost effective. So there's a couple benefits to having a leader line if you have braid as your main line. It's really the only time you're going to use a leader, unless you're going for bigger fish, saltwater fish. If you need like a shark, you need like a metal leader. Certain fish with like heavy teeth, you're going to need a metal leader or something more. The way I use my main braid line to my leader, for instance, let's just say I have a medium or medium heavy rod and I have 15-pound braid on there as my main line going up. What I'm going to use for my leader line is going to be fluorocarbon or monofilament, probably 10 to 12-pound lines. So 15, 10 to 12, I always step it down from my main line. And the reason I do that is because if you get hooked on a branch or rocks or a tree or some cover or something like that, and you need to break, I lost it, I'm screwed, it's hooked on a tree, I'm not gonna get that back. You want that leader line to snap as opposed to your main line. So you snap that leader line, you tie another lure on. You're not losing your braid, your expensive braid. You want the breaking strength of that leader line to be less than the breaking strength of your main line. The other thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing leader line, it depends on the lures you're using. So if you're going to use topwater lures, you have your main line, whatever, braid. Now if it's a floating lure, a wake bait, a topwater lure, something that's going to be on the top of the water column, floating, you're going to want something that floats, like monofilament. Fluorocarbon sinks. So if you use a topwater lure and you use fluorocarbon, depending on how heavy that fluorocarbon is, it might drag your lure down subsurface and it might not do what it's supposed to be doing. Same thing in the opposite direction, in the other direction. If you use monofilament, which floats, and you have a subsurface or sinking lure, it's going to pull that lure up. So it might not run right. You want to make sure you have the right line for the right lure that you're using. Sinking, fluorocarbon, floating, monofilament. Pretty easy. Here's a question I've had a conversation with Carlton about. We were talking about what's the proper leader length. Now it's a mixed bag. I've heard certain people say 12 to 16 inches. I've heard people say you don't want the knot, your connecting knot, which we'll get to in a second. I'll even show you how to tie it. You don't want your knot going through your guides. When I typically cast, I only have maybe like that much line out. So 16 inches, and then that's hanging off the tip of my rod. It's not going through the guides, and I'm casting like that. So I don't feel like that much leader line is going to do that much difference because your main braid that's visible is going to be right here, your lure is going to be right here. There's only that much distance. The fish are going to be able to tell. They're going to be like, hey, what the hell's that in front? That doesn't make any sense. I've heard other people say you want a lot of leader line, like you want twice the length of your rod. So say your rod's 7 feet, you stretch out 7 feet, and then you stretch out another 7 feet. So you have 14 feet of leader line, basically. Or if you want to think about it, you tie on your line, you tie your knot, which we'll get to, and then you reel down, and right before your reel, or just on your reel, that's where the knot sits. And then you have 7 feet and 7 feet. Then you reel down more, and you have your 16-inch, casting line that you're ready to do, that much hanging out, and you cast it out. And I've been leaning more in that direction. The thought process behind that is, if you cast it out, you have 14 feet of leader line. You start reeling back, and once that knot gets on the reel, now it's wrapped around your reel. Now if the fish attacks it or whatever, you set that, thus there's less of a failure at that knot point. Like, it's already going to be wrapped around your reel. if the knot fails, it's not going to fail right there. You know what I mean? The line might snap, or your hook might fail, but it's not going to fail where your line is connected to your line. Now, if you only have 16 inches of line out and you're fishing and that connecting knot fails, you lost your leader line, you still have your braid, your main line, you lost a hook, or you lost a lure, and the fish might be swimming around with it. There's a couple different thoughts on that. I mean, it's really personal preference. What I would encourage you to do is research that a little more, see what maybe your favorite angler says. The other thing with 14 feet of leader line, right? If I want to cut off some, I can tie on another lure. I'm still going to have plenty of line. You know, I might be less than that. It's not like I'm going to cut off 14 feet and then retie 14 feet of leader line. I'm going to keep working down until it's probably 18 inches long, and then, I mean, I fish with leader line that's that much, and that's ridiculous because there's no point to that. I mean, the point is to make your lure look more realistic and not have the fish see the leader line. Yeah, leader line's important if you're using braid as a main line. If you're using fluorocarbon or monofilament as your main line, don't worry about it. You can just keep chopping down. The only downside is that by the end of the season, if you keep doing that, you're gonna have very little line on your reel. So that's why I use a braid as a main line, because I only have to replace my leader, which is a lot cheaper. The braid stays on pretty much the whole time, the whole season. So I should probably show you how to tie the connecting knot from the main line to the leader line, right? That's probably the main point of this video. Let's go take a look at that right now. So let's tie this uni knot. This is a double uni knot. I attach my braid main line to my fluorocarbon or monofilament leader line. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna line hey, it's gone. Oh geez. So we're going to line these up like this. What we're going to do is we're going to pinch these lines together. So probably come up 3-4 inches, pull out some extra line on your leader. We're going to take this leader line. I'm going to make a loop. And now I'm going to go over and through 6 or 7 times with the braid line, the main line pointing this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do it 7 times. There we go. So now you're going to slowly pull. You're going to lube it up with your mouth. You're going to pull this loose end right here. If I could pull it, that would be great. And you can pull down on the knot. Now we can see that little knot right there. That is the fluorocarbon leader knot. You're going to do the same thing with that braid right here. So you make let's see if I can do this. You take that braid. You want it on this side of the knot. So you can see our knot right here. What you're going to do is you're going to make a loop like that, right? So that is the braid. And you're going to go over and through. What I do is I pinch where the knot is, and just that way of it, I pinch the braid. So now the braid is what we're looping, not the leader line. So this is the main line. So I put like a finger like that, and I just go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now I'm going to hold it right here, slowly pull the tag end of the braid right here. I'm going to lick it or spit all over it and pull that tight. So this is, I believe this is very heavy braid, probably 18 pounds. You have a knot here and a knot here. You have your fluorocarbon knot and you have your braid knot. What you're going to do is you're going to spit on all of this. So put it in your mouth and make a bunch of spit and just slide it through. Now you're going to grab the main line and the leader line and slowly pull it together. That was probably faster than I wanted. But now you take your tag ends, and now you have what's called making a double uni knot. You can see that's not coming apart. And then you tie your leader line, you attach that to your lure. Take your time doing it. It's going to take some practice, but the double uni knot is very effective at connecting different diameter line to a different diameter line. So if you have rope and you're going to paracord, or you're going from braid to monofilament or fluorocarbon, this works across the board. If you find rope that's thick and rope that's thin, you can connect it this way. You're going to do probably not spit on it if it's rope, but for fishing line, you want to lube it up. That's how you tie the double uni knot. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful watching me show you how to tie the uni knot. If it was, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, maybe a like. You can do all the YouTube stuff. Beep, bop, beep, boop, ba-da, bop, shut up, bow, bow. Anyway, thanks for watching this week. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll catch you next week.